A common struggle that many people have in our world is a lack of purpose or feeling like their lives have little meaning or passion. For men in particular, with much of their purpose encouraged to arrive from their work and productive outputs, the picture seems even more bleak. Many men are starving for purpose and perhaps feel trapped in a system that offers them very little of it. In this video, we will explore why so many men feel like they are without purpose, how the true nature of most men is completely misaligned with our culture, and how men can align with their purpose and create a meaningful life for themselves based on who they truly are at their core. Of course, I will be speaking in generalities here. Not all men will be experiencing or relate to how I'm describing the nature of men. There are definitely cultural differences and differences amongst individuals. This is, of course, my perspective as a man myself. Now, what evidence is there that the average man, or men in particular on average, aren't exactly thriving in our society, or perhaps don't seem to be living supremely purposeful lives? Generally speaking, the state of men is pretty awful. In the United States in particular, it has been noted that about 10 million men are not participating at all in the workforce. There is also a rampant opioid epidemic that is disproportionately impacting men. There are very high rates of suicide for men. Men in general are pursuing college far less than women. These are signs that men are generally disengaging from society. Materially speaking, in the United States especially, the statistics show that all else being equal, women seem to be doing quite better on the material level. Even in terms of making more money, when you remove varying factors, looking at women who don't have children versus men who don't have children, women seem to be making more money and doing better on the material level. And adding to the fact of things like personal and anecdotal evidence from the many men that I have encountered that there just isn't much a sense of aliveness in their life. It's just a grind during the week and living for the weekend, hope to attract a partner and settle for the standard life plan as the best that's available to them. A society of men aligned with their purpose would not show these patterns. But there are also plenty of stories of men who have climbed the so-called ladder of success and ended up finding it to be completely empty and meaningless, and then have sought out different paths to fulfillment. Perhaps some men have had that gift, while many other men don't ever get the chance, as they are caught in a seemingly endless loop of just trying to get by, facing the realities of the responsibilities of their lives or the expectations of our culture. So that is a high-level picture of the state of men these days. Let's dive a little deeper to see where the lack of purpose seems to be stemming from. And we can start by asking, where are men currently encouraged to derive life purpose from? I did discuss this in another video on the unique struggles of men in our society, in that women tend to have more avenues available to them for life fulfillment. Things like their family, friends, hobbies, career, if they have one, things like community work. This is a byproduct of having their emotional landscapes being far more available to them. But men in general are typically constrained by the culture to have far fewer options for fulfillment. The primary avenue where men seek or are encouraged to derive meaning and purpose from is in their working lives and productive outputs. Many women likely experience the same things as men in this regard if they do in fact work, but there can be added pressure for many men given that internally they have fewer options for finding their purpose in their lives in our culture. They generally don't fall back on being a stay-at-home parent. So, how's the work environment doing in generating purpose for most men? The problem is that most men, and people in general, are working in environments that, simply put, drain their life force. These work environments are a byproduct of current business culture. Men are often working in cubicles, desk farms, or sterile warehouses, engaging in repetitive, boring desk work. They're indoors, staring at a computer screen most of the time, or engaging in some other menial tasks just to pay their bills. They often have no sense of whether what they are doing has any impact on anyone other than making a corporation more profitable. They're easily discarded by their employers whenever the business turns slightly less profitable, often barely recognized for their contributions, all while expected to work 40 to 60 hours a week, commuting in traffic, sitting in dull meetings, and video conferences, in an environment that forces them to be sterile and unexpressive and conform to company policies or risk losing their income. Maybe some men own their own businesses or work in some form of manual labor that on top of that could be strenuous on their body, but these often hold similar work-life characteristics as what I just mentioned, having hardly any autonomy over their schedule or what they work on, and very little sense if they are making any meaningful difference in the world beyond just participating in heartless commerce. Perhaps some men out there genuinely enjoy engaging in these environments, but from my experience, they are a very rare exception. So the primary avenue for men in deriving purpose is generally a net negative for many men in meeting that desire. How about in the other areas of life where men might garner some feelings of purpose? Most decent men also derive meaning from their family and relationships, in particular with being a father. That is, if a man has a romantic partner and children to speak of at all. But some do find that that adds at least a hint of meaning to their otherwise meaningless working lives for the simple fact that it is the avenue for providing for their families, which is of course very meaningful. But for some, it also adds another level of pressure. On top of being bored, unfulfilled, or even flat out miserable in their working lives, the avenue that ought to be providing them with expression and fulfillment, they can't leave that endeavor because they have a duty to provide for their children. Therefore, for many men, the avenue that is potentially directly draining their life force must continue to be endured simply out of necessity. Anyone can only endure such a fate for so long before something drastic happens, perhaps turning to drugs, extramarital affairs for a spark of newness, or succumbing to the pressures in harmful ways. So the current arena of where men are being encouraged to find their purpose is already showing some obvious pitfalls. Why is this happening? Why can't men seem to just toughen up or change their perspective of the nature of our culture to find meaning in it? Why can't men just be grateful that they even have a job or something of the sort? To put it simply, all of this goes against the very nature of the average man. Let's dive a little deeper into the general makeup of your average man to see why things are so misaligned, and perhaps we'll see why this isn't a problem of a lack of gratitude or perspective. Let's start by asking, what do men actually want out of life, and why are those needs not being met? And again, I'm speaking in generalities, of course. There are no official rules of what it means to be a real man or what all men want, but there are some common trends in the male species. This should be no surprise, as most every human or creature wants this, but men generally want a partnership with a woman. Speaking about the statistically most common sexual orientation, of course. I will share some notions to offer a deeper perspective of what a man may be looking for in their relationships with women and how it is far beyond what the stereotypes may assume or our culture just passes over, that it in fact relates directly with their feelings of fulfillment. Generally, it is more than just having an attractive trophy wife, as some might describe. I will illustrate this with a fun example. This is not at all scientifically robust, but I do think it drives a point home quite well. I recall hearing about a survey that was done asking men and women a similar question, and in a hypothetical scenario, something that would never actually take place, it was asked to a group of women, what would they do in a hypothetical world where men didn't exist? And the consistent general answer from this survey was that women would generally be fine, and they would probably do things like they would go to the beach and they would dance around naked because they wouldn't have to worry about creepy men staring at them or something of the sort. And generally something of the sort that women would be okay. They would get on their own. Probably some form of dramatization of the results, or probably some bias in the sample or something of the sort. And this probably wasn't a super serious study that was done. But the men's response, I think, indicated something very deep. So men were asked the same question in this survey. What would men do in a world without women? The ubiquitous answer for every man in this study was that they would not want to live. That life isn't worth living without women in it. Why is that? Honest men have a deep need to protect, serve, and celebrate the female species. Women at their core feminine expression offer beauty and radiance. They are to men, when in their own authentic feminine expression, a walking piece of art. Men seek to preserve that beauty and radiance. There is a good reason for the common notion of a woman being what is called a muse and inspiration for a man's creative expression. Obviously, women are far more than that, but for simplicity's sake, I think that makes a point. Also, men, of course, should not be placing their self-worth on anything in their external, but this is very much a natural male instinct to receive fulfillment in this arena. But there is a major problem with this, as our culture has been encouraging women to behave like men. Women now engage and act in very similar ways that men do, engaging in masculine activities like working full-time in environments that require overtly masculine energy and diminishing their natural feminine energy. Vast swaths of women have discarded their dresses for business casual attire, discarded their feminine softness for the stoic neutrality required to perform at their corporate jobs. Essentially, women no longer signal to men that they are, in fact, this feminine muse worth celebrating and protecting. They are just like men in many ways. So if men do find themselves to be in partnership with a woman who already has a well-paying job of her own, the man may find himself feeling emasculated, as their partner can meet all of the masculine duties that he would want to provide without him. For many men in partnerships today, they have essentially found themselves a friend that they can have sex with. There is generally no polarity, which is required for either person, either partner, to feel nourished. And the more feminine women remaining in our culture are more often likely to be matched with the highest achieving men. This places the majority of men without many options to fully meet this desire. And this is definitely not about blaming anyone or forcing anyone to be responsible and solve this for the other gender. It's simply an acknowledgement of the state of our culture. Now, what else do men desire for themselves in a major way? Men desire freedom. And what do I mean by freedom? Surely not just freedom from government tyranny or the freedom to choose a partner or a career path or between 30 different types of toothpaste from your grocery store. This, again, is the type of thing that is best shown, not told, and experienced for oneself. So I'm going to share again a story that highlights this point quite well. Years ago, I attended a Tony Robbins event called Date with Destiny, which is chronicled in the Netflix documentary called I Am Not Your Guru, which I recommend watching. This was a week-long event. On one of the days in particular, the program was focused on helping men and women embody more of their predominant energy. Their masculine energy, particularly if you are a man, as that's typically what men are more aligned with, and for women to embody more of their feminine nature. Both the men and women were given an experience to help them drop into more of their predominant energy. For example, the women were offered an experience where this was being held at a decently sized conference center arena of about 2,500 people, equal amounts of men and women. So for the turn, when it was the women's turn to drop into their feminine energy, and Tony Robbins events are basically like music festivals, they have very robust sound equipment. They played the song Girls Just Want to Have Fun and encouraged all the women to drop their hair, let their hair down, and just have a great time, dance around like in their feminine radiance and their wholeness of their beauty. And for the length of that song, all the women in the room got up and danced their hearts out, expressing themselves through their body. Then the men were given their turn for their opportunity to express their feminine essence or their masculine essence, and it was a completely different experience. So for the men, all the lights dimmed down, and on the large screen played a scene from the movie Braveheart, starring Mel Gibson, specifically a very well-known and perhaps the most famous scene in that movie where Mel Gibson gives a very inspirational and empowering speech to men who are about to embark on a very important battle where the odds are against them, but he's encouraging them to fight for their freedom.
What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Yeah, that scene. And then after that, I'm not even sure if Tony Robbins said anything, but he was standing on the stage, a very dim light just shining directly on top of him, ominous music playing in the background. He doesn't say anything, he's just standing there quietly. And then all of a sudden, he raises his fists into the air and just yells out, "Freedom!" And then spontaneously, unprovoked, without anyone telling them to do this, all of the men in the arena got up from their chairs and yelled out, raised their fists up and yelled, "Freedom!" Tony Robbins proceeded to do that same thing about 10 more times, and each time afterwards, about 1,000 or so men shook the entire arena with their untamed masculine war cry. It's the type of experience that you need to feel to really know what it is. But that is what I mean by freedom. The ability to express a man's untamed nature, to conquer the unknown, and to work towards something meaningful with honor and without constriction. After that experience, Tony Robbins likes to ask people in the crowd for their experience. One woman got on the microphone and she was literally crying as she was sharing her experience, and she said that that was the most amazing experience that she has ever had in her entire life. And she mentioned that she was there with her male partner, and it was only from that experience where she got to witness 1,000 men let out their untamed nature that she finally realized that her partner has this need to express himself in this manner, that men have this innate desire to express themselves in this untamed manner. So, to put it more broadly, a major desire that men have is to be heroic. This can be explained in the archetype that is called the hero's journey, which was popularized by the historian Joseph Campbell. This is an arc that Joseph Campbell found many times in stories across cultures who had never interacted with each other. Essentially, he examined all sorts of cultures. They all tend to write about stories and arcs that seem to follow this same pattern, and he wrote about it in his book called The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which has later become casually referred to as the hero's journey. It explains this archetypal journey present in many stories across all cultures, and I will share a quick overview of the hero's journey. There are many modern interpretations and diagrams of showing what this journey looks like, but generally speaking, there are various phases. This one here is showing that the hero's journey is a journey through 12 different specific thresholds, starting with a phase that is perhaps the most well-known, the call to adventure. You're starting in phase one, where you're just, the hero is just living in their ordinary world, in their ordinary day-to-day environment where not much is happening. Then they experience the call to adventure, the call to something more. Something arrives in their environment that is calling them forward. And very often they experience the refusal of the call. They may be scared, I'm not ready, I'm not good enough. But then later on, and sometimes it's not always in this direct order, but there is a meeting of the mentor. There is the first threshold that basically shows them that there's no going back from here. They have now crossed a threshold, and they're being thrust into this journey. There is various tests that they endure. They meet allies and enemies on their path. Then they engage in the section of this journey called transformation, where they approach the inmost cave, which is generally an inner type of experience, perhaps even facing death in the next one called the ordeal. They may actually face their own mortality or some type of inner struggle. And then they experience a reward. And then the last quadrant here is about the road back. The road back and experiencing some form of a resurrection, maybe not entirely literal, but they emerge transformed, and then they return with the elixir, perhaps to save the day or to return with some form of wisdom. More than anything, this archetype is the basis for who knows how many stories, from Odysseus in the Odyssey to many modern stories, most popular being Luke Skywalker in the original Star Wars trilogy, with director George Lucas known for overtly using Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as his inspiration for the story. Other notable examples are Neo from The Matrix, Frodo from Lord of the Rings, and Harry Potter. This journey is not just reserved for men. There have been women-led stories of this arc, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz.
I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
But this hints at the heart of what men are wired to desire for themselves. This is why men are drawn to things like video games, fantasy and action and superhero movies, hero's journey stories. They see themselves in these characters, or they want to be these characters, essentially. Video games in particular allow men to almost literally be the hero that they have an innate desire to be. They face challenges in immense mythical worlds, go on adventures, level up and improve their abilities, protect and make a difference to other characters, and perhaps save and court a beautiful woman. It sounds childish on the surface, but many video games meet deep primal needs of men. Now that we see some extremely important desires for men to feel fulfilled and to feel like they are living their purpose, what does our culture do to meet those desires? Nothing. It starves them of these desires. If you look around our culture, you will find that there is no place for men to be initiated, no place for men to experience a rite of passage, no clear thresholds that mark that one has become a man or reached any other major milestone in their life. Whereas for women are essentially forced into initiation and to adulthood by puberty itself. They are essentially faced with the harsh reality that they could become and must care for a child if that situation presented itself. Men, boys, do not have that type of forced initiation. And also, in our culture, fathers don't initiate their sons because they themselves were not initiated and generally do not offer masculine guidance. We essentially have a society of boys who have never been initiated into proper manhood. There is no place for men to become heroic. There is hardly anyone in need of protecting. Some women now are actively against being protected nowadays, as they are, as I mentioned, not generally embodying their feminine nature in a robust way. Many of them have their own income of their own, and some now even see what used to be called acts of chivalry as being degrading to women, as so all of a sudden they're not equal if someone's holding a door open for them. And our society is overly concerned with safety. There's hardly any place where it's okay for men to push their limits or act in a way that might make them feel alive. Every act of our behavior is regulated, from speed limits while driving to any sort of physical aggression being seen as an immediate threat requiring punishment. Men wish to be heroic, to have honor, to have a purpose of something beyond themselves, to achieve wisdom after a hard-earned trial, and to rest their heads on the pillow of a nurturing feminine muse. Do you see the disconnect? Do you see why men go searching for ways to be initiated, to attract a feminine partner, to explore seemingly dangerous activities like drugs, gambling, or even joining a gang for thrill-seeking, or resort to watching pornography to play out their romantic ideals that they are unable to manifest in their actual lives, or immerse themselves in the playing or watching of live sports, which is the only avenue where it is generally acceptable to channel a man's natural propensity for aggression. I can't let out my lifetime's worth of pent-up rage, but I will religiously follow my city's football team to project my need for aliveness onto them. Is it any wonder why some men immerse themselves in the realm of video games or fantasy cosplay where they get to pretend to be the hero they always wanted to be? Can you see why to many men, living in our culture feels like a slow death of everything true to them? That they may not wear physical chains, but feel inside like a slave. That their heart may be beating, but they don't feel alive. That life in our culture is akin to living perpetually on one's knees, instead of having the opportunity of dying standing tall on their feet. So the picture is looking quite stark for men in the realm of their life's purpose. What can be done about it? Are men doomed to live lives of misery? Can men ever hope to meet these innate desires and make a purposeful life for themselves in our world? There are some challenges with this, no doubt. For example, men cannot force the masses of women to drop into their feminine radiance. Men cannot force the world into a battlefield of overt heroic opportunities and adventure. So what's left to do? Perhaps the most heroic thing a man can do in our world is to face himself. Purpose doesn't appear when you perfect yourself and optimize your same old life. It appears when you become honest about what hurts. Perhaps the most heroic thing a man can do in our culture is to tell the truth. To tell the truth about how much of yourself you've had to put on a shelf just to exist in a world that doesn't celebrate the fullness of what you have to offer. Many men carry generations of a certain type of pain, suffering in silence. Men have generally had all of their emotions repressed out of them, their wildness forced into a cage. Almost no experiences of genuine brotherhood. Perhaps even assaulted by the society of late that now assumes men to be monsters for even being interested in women. There's generally been no one telling a man that they are proud of the way he shows up and endures in silence while trying to support those that he loves. And men are just passively told to deal with it and get on with their lives. Perhaps the most heroic thing a man can do in this world is to face the fact of how much pain the world has caused you, offered you little opportunity to express yourself, how much quiet isolation and loneliness you've had to endure, no matter how many people were around you. From one standpoint, many heroic tales that men idealize can appear simple on the surface, as they generally rely on instinct or survival, just pure task-based competence, and involve very little on the emotional level. But it can be far scarier to look into an abyss of emptiness, inner pain, and silent weariness that's gone unnoticed for a lifetime. Many people can instinctively defend themselves from a threat, or move forward when their entire life, as they know it, was burned to the ground against their will and have no options remaining. But perhaps only the bravest warriors conquer their inner kingdom of self without collapse. This is how you become the hero of your own life. This is how you find the will to untether yourself from a world that is misaligned with your true nature and demand to create your purpose from within. This is where your purpose can be found. Your purpose, the unknown to be conquered, can be you. But it requires the truth. The truth that the life you built for yourself cannot hold the fullness of who you are. And from there, it may be time to embark on your own hero's journey. For most men, no matter how old they are in stage 1 of the hero's journey, the ordinary world, just living their ordinary lives yet to be initiated. It's time to accept, as awful as it is, that there likely isn't going to be a call to adventure that comes from outside of you. It must be self-initiated, and it will be up to you to determine where it takes you. You don't need to know where it goes or have anything planned out. No hero does. You just need to take that first honest step. It might be realizing that you have emotional wounds that need exploring. Perhaps exploring the avenue of plant medicines and psychedelics to see what may await you in the other realms of your psyche. Perhaps looking into taking a vision quest and creating your own intentional rite of passage, investigating what many indigenous tribes do to initiate their men. Or maybe it's finding a men's group or traveling somewhere new for an extended period of time to shake up your life. It's in these experiences where you can move further down the path of your own hero's journey, to find potential mentors who walked what you have, face tests that genuinely challenge you to evolve, to find new allies who may help you on your path. If you're in stage 1, the people around you generally encourage you to be the same, or only make small little improvements like make a little more money or get a better job. And eventually, if you embark down this path, you may reach a point to receive the gift of truly facing your own mortality, only to be reborn anew with priceless wisdom that you can share with others. Yes, it may be scary to leave the safety and familiarity of your known life, but what other choice do you have? Sooner or later, the pressure will build to a point that it is no longer tolerable. And while men should be doing this for themselves, a natural benefit of this path is a deepening into their masculine nature, which will allow for the women around to feel safe enough to deepen into their feminine nature and call forward the harmonious and balanced partnership that most men crave. This is how men can mold their external world to meet more of their genuine desires. In closing, I hope this helps anyone out there understand why men are starving for purpose in our world, how our society overtly neuters men into sterile, uninitiated boys, and how, despite this, there is a way forward to generate a life of purpose. All it requires is a leap of faith. If you find yourself navigating a major life threshold, struggling how to manage a life that no longer fits, or seeking to venture into the depths of your own emotional landscape and psyche for the first time, I do offer one-on-one support in these exact areas. I have faced more life-altering, death-facing thresholds than I can even count, and it is my purpose to support those who may be doing the same. I would be happy to meet you in whatever you're navigating. So I welcome you to check out my website link in the description and reach out. That wraps up this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.